My sister Diana, who often felt entitled, abandoned her 3 children, so I raised them. Years later, they offered me money as a thank you, but she demanded it back. Hello, I am a 48-year-old female, and my younger sister, Diana, is 46. Diana and I never got along well as youngsters. She was often snobbish and unpleasant to me, so we split up after high school. I chose to continue my education, while she preferred to live with her boyfriend. Luckily for her, he was wealthy, as our parents could never have afforded her rent. Diana made it clear to our parents that she was unconcerned about their opinions and would do whatever she wanted, so they let her go free. Diana had twin girls at 20 and a boy at 21 while living with her partner. Our parents were pleased for her, but also anxious because she had many responsibilities and no job. She was wholly dependent on her boyfriend's money to support her lifestyle. Unfortunately, they parted ways after she discovered he was cheating. Thankfully, he provided child support but chose not to be a father and signed away his parental rights. The girls were 3 years old at the time, and my nephew was only 2. After that, my sister was fully on her own and needed assistance to maintain herself. Despite our rocky relationship, I chose to help her due to pressure from our parents. I had a decent income, but it wasn't enough to sustain all 4 of them. My parents and I contributed a small amount each month to help them make ends meet. She struggled for the first few months because she lacked a degree and work experience. Starting from the bottom meant she had to dedicate significant time to her job, which was difficult since she also had to care for her children. Hiring a babysitter was too expensive, so she relied on me or her friends. Our parents were working and couldn't stay at home with the kids either. This situation continued for a few years, and I believe Diana began to resent her own children, viewing them as obstacles to her success. I would visit occasionally, not for her sake, but for the children, to ensure they were doing well. I didn't have a good relationship with Diana, but I couldn't let innocent children suffer because of their mother's poor decisions. My parents and I regularly checked on the kids, who often complained about Diana's treatment. She would chastise them for minor infractions and lash out at them for just being kids. It was a tough environment, and I wished I could help them by taking them away, but I had no legal authority. Diana started dating again, which made things worse. Each time a relationship failed, she blamed her children, convinced that her partners would leave her if they found out she had kids. She would remind them of their father's abandonment and threaten to leave them too. The children were scared of her, and their childhood was marked by her narcissism. Several times, I considered taking the kids and leaving, but I knew I couldn't petition for custody. Her actions were wrong, but they didn't justify taking them away. The kids were grateful to have me in their lives. My parents were too old to be close friends, but I was always there when they needed me. They could confide in me about their issues at school or with Diana. When they turned 18, they chose to move in with me instead of staying with their mother. Diana was clearly upset and expressed that she had wasted 18 years raising them only to have them leave. She said I should have stepped in sooner if I wanted to raise her children. I wanted to tell her that she hadn't truly raised them. They had essentially raised themselves while she was often at work or out with men who eventually left her after learning about her children. It was clear she didn't understand what her priorities should have been. The children chose the person who had genuinely been there for them over the one who had made their lives difficult. I knew it was hard for her to accept, and I didn't want to rub it in her face, but it was evident why things turned out as they did. I understood that her anger towards me was a reflection of her own struggles. So I kept my mouth shut, and that was it. After that, we didn't really communicate. Her children opted to leave her and live with me. Diana also chose to cut ties with all of us and cease speaking to anyone, including our parents. This was strange because they had done nothing to deserve it. I believe the fact that they hadn't chosen her side against me when my nieces and nephew opted to live with me irritated her, so she cut them off as well. It's been 7 years, and they're all doing well now. I don't know what Diana has been up to, but I know her children are thriving. My nephew attended medical school and is now a pediatrician. One of my nieces has a degree in literature and is now a teacher, and her twin sister runs a hair salon. I assisted all of them in obtaining business loans and supported them to the best of my ability. I'm very proud of them because they have come a long way from their previous home. They lived with me for 4 years, but even then, it wasn't really like they were living with me because they were generally away at college and only came back on occasion. I believe they didn't want to return to Diana's home, where they didn't feel wanted. It's been 2 years since they all moved out, and I'm very thrilled for them. I never expected anything in return for what I did, because I truly believed it was the right thing to do. They were just kids, and no matter how bad things were between me and my sister, I could never be callous to them. I've always had a soft spot for them, especially since I've never had kids or been married. It wasn't my cup of tea, but for them, I wanted to be there as a parental figure because their father wasn't around, and well, we all know who Diana was. They needed someone, and my parents were too old for that role, so I stepped forward. That is all I did. I never anticipated anything in return, but I am grateful that they are the kind of children who think I deserve a gift of appreciation for what I've done, even though I don't believe it was something that required compensation. About a week ago, I celebrated my 48th birthday with my friends and family, including my nieces and nephew. I had a great time, and my nephew was kind enough to organize everything for me. Despite my desire to pay for everything, he insisted on covering the cost because he is now earning enough money to do nice things for me and show his appreciation. After the party, the three of them sat me down to talk. They told me that now that they were all financially established, they wanted to express their gratitude by collectively writing me a check. I tried to explain that it was unnecessary because I was still working and could support myself, but they insisted. They claimed it wasn't about repaying a debt they could never fully repay me for. It was about the encouragement and faith I had provided them, which they could never completely repay. This was their humble attempt to show their appreciation. I was deeply moved by their genuine act and wanted to share it on social media to thank them for everything they were doing for me. My sister and I hadn't spoken in years, so I didn't think she would care. I was blocked on every platform, and I assumed she wouldn't see it, so I felt it was fine. Diana had never followed up with us or inquired about her children's well-being after they had left home. Granted, it was they who broke ties with her first and moved in with me, but that was her fault. The least she could have done was show interest in their lives and try to be a mother figure to them, but honestly, she didn't seem to care about the loss of communication, so I figured she was all right. Following that post, I received a reply from her a few days ago. I wasn't expecting it because, as I mentioned, we hadn't spoken in 6 years. However, I should have predicted that as soon as she realized her children were financially secure, she would start sniffing around like a bloodhound, trying to figure out how much money she could obtain from them. In her reply, she stated that she had seen my post and wanted to talk about her children. She recognized that she had made mistakes in the past and had not been a good mother, but she felt compelled to give herself another chance. She claimed she had missed them a lot over the previous 6 years. I'm not sure how much truth there is in that statement because if she truly missed them, she could have contacted me at least once. She asked me to speak with her children and help bridge the gap between them as they respond well to me. The timing was strange, so I ignored her message. However, when I failed to respond, she called me in the evening and I snapped. She insisted that I help her reconnect with her children, but I refused. I was quite aware that she was merely pursuing their money, not because she truly cared about their well-being. If she genuinely regretted what she had done, she would have contacted them directly rather than coming to me. She couldn't let go of her pride and ego for a single second. She still expected her children to reach out to her, despite the fact that she was the one who had made a mistake. It was astounding how entitled she was. She tried to argue with me, claiming that she wasn't pursuing their money and that it was offensive for me to suggest so. I assured her that I wasn't implying anything. It was so obvious. I felt appalled and repulsed by what she was doing. She then accused me of stealing everything from her, claiming that I had already taken her children and was now taking her money. I informed her that I didn't need the money and was originally hesitant to accept the check, but now I was going to take it all because she didn't deserve it. Now, she's crying on social media, telling everyone what I said and attempting to make me seem bad. Some of my relatives say I went too far with my words and that I owe her an apology, which is absurd. That is why I am here to ask if I'm in the wrong for telling my sister that she does not deserve the money that her children have decided to give me. Update: some relatives advised me, and I recounted the situation with my nephews and nieces. They informed me they had heard about it from a few relatives and had considered speaking with me, but hadn't had the time. However, after I called them over and discussed it, they told me they believed I did the right thing. My nephew was open about his views, stating that he had never considered his mother a maternal figure throughout his life. He always blamed me because she had never been there for him, and my niece agreed. He'd always been the most outspoken of the group, so it was predictable this was coming from him. My nieces were too emotional to speak, but he was quite angry and upset. He explained that Diana only spoke to me because she had never done the basic minimum for them, despite receiving child support from their father. Even then, she would humiliate them and make them feel horrible for merely existing, which was not their fault. They believe I did the right thing and have informed me that they will not contact their mother, regardless of what happens. They also believe that I should stand up for myself and explain my side of the story online, especially now that Diana has decided to speak negatively about me on social media. They think this is the most effective way to convey the message, so that's what I'll do. I'm glad they chose to take my side in this because my parents are staying out of it and have stated that they don't want to get involved. Diana never spoke to them after her children cut her off, which I find unusual. My parents' polite approach to this problem strikes me as strange. given that they have not communicated with Diana in the last 6 years. I was disappointed, but at least my nieces and nephews support me now. Many people have asked me why I did not petition for custody and have the children taken away from Diana if I knew she was a bad mother and was mistreating them. I mentioned in my earlier piece that while her actions were wrong, they did not constitute torture, abuse, or neglect. She was often harsh to them and wasn't emotionally present. While I could have filed for custody, it was improbable that I would have gotten the children into my care. Courts typically encourage families to stay together, and in this case, they had already lost their father, who abandoned them, leaving only their mother as a biological parent. Naturally, the court would want the family to stay together. I knew that if I filed a petition against her or took legal action, she would ensure that I never saw them again. It was already unlikely that I would have been able to take the kids away from her and obtain full custody, which would have put them in a dangerous situation. This is why I decided to play it safe by staying in touch with them and being available. I'm not sure if it was the correct decision in the long term, but at the time, it seemed like the best option. I hope this answers the questions most people had for me. Maybe I came across as the villain for what I did, but I don't care. I know the kids are doing well in their lives, and I did everything I could to keep them happy and safe. I was always there for them, so I don't feel guilty about anything. Update: it's been a week since Diana's message, and I've received a lot of phone calls today from family and people who have spoken with her. They were pointing out my mistakes and scolding me, which was getting really tiresome. I was swamped with work, which is why I hadn't been able to post sooner. However, after a brief talk with my nephew and nieces, I decided to finally make a post that shared my side of the story as well as, in some ways, theirs. I don't think anyone in the family realized how much those kids had been through. They endured taunts every day simply because Diana opted to become pregnant early and drop everything for her boyfriend at the time. Even after that, she continued to blame others for her own actions and attempted to appear as if she was doing everything possible for her children. But in reality, she was never present for them. Now that her children are doing well financially, she claims that I have stolen them and her fortune. I felt people deserved to know the truth, not just her twisted version of events, in which she was the victim rather than the person who tormented everyone. They had already judged me for various reasons since they only knew her side of the story and sympathized with her. So, I typed everything up a few hours ago and published the post. So far, she hasn't said anything to me, and the only texts I've gotten are from relatives who were judging me earlier. They have now abruptly changed their tune and are attempting to apologize for judging me too soon, but frankly, that means nothing to me. It was vital for me to share the truth about how Diana handled her children, which is why they are no longer in contact with her. Now that everything is finished, I am ready to move on from this. Honestly, I don't want anything to do with Diana anymore, and I was perfectly content for the past 6 years when she didn't contact me. I believe the same can be said for her children as well. I don't understand why she felt the need to create so much drama. If she wanted money, she might have asked for it rather than pretending to want another chance at motherhood. Update: it's been a day since I wrote that post. Diana may have woken up today and decided to get back at me. Instead of contacting me directly, she became increasingly dramatic and began commenting on my post, attempting to make it seem like I was lying. However, as soon as she reacted, her children began commenting and responding to her, reminding her of specific instances from their childhood when she had been cruel to them. That lasted about an hour, and I didn't feel bad about it. None of us did. My nephew, nieces, and I were all thoroughly enjoying the process. They were humiliating her, and there was no way she could get out of it since every single lie she tried to tell to make me look bad was discovered. I'm glad I chose to do this on the weekend. Otherwise, we might not have been able to respond as quickly. Anyway, after about an hour, she started deleting her comments so that no one could catch her in her falsehoods. However, it was too late. Many others had already noticed what was going on. I believe she started to be called out for her actions, and then she blocked me. She also blocked her children. I guess it was her way of surrendering, and I'm pleased she did, because she would have lost in a fight with us. We clearly have the upper hand here, morally or otherwise. I believed deleting the comments would be the end of our connection, but she chose to contact me personally as well. She messaged me saying she hoped I was happy now that I had painted her as the monster and that everyone hated her. It was very ironic coming from her, because that was exactly what she was attempting to do to me first. I don't understand why individuals attempt to dish it out when they know they can't take it in return. Just don't cause any drama if you don't want to be held accountable for the results. Anyway, I disregarded that message, and that's what we all plan to do for the rest of our lives because she is no longer worth our attention.